Today is 6 months after this catastrophic Hurricane Melissa hit Jamaica. What a time that was. And it's been an amazing journey for the Lascochin Foundation. I know you all have been integrally involved in this process. Anake, you were very early in your own community. Take us back then. Tell me, what you experienced, what you saw. What was it like?
I remember the first time I heard that this hurricane was heading to the western part of Jamaica. And immediately I started to panic because I know that a lot of the houses down there are bored and they can't manage that impact of the hurricane. And I tried reaching out to my family. When I finally did get a hold of them, I remember hearing my grandmother screaming in the background, the roof is going, that is going. And then the call just cut. And I never heard back from them until maybe 2 days later. And being in Kingston and not knowing what was happening, it was unfortunately worrisome. And finally, when I did get the opportunity to go down there was nothing I could recognize. Having to see my own family sheltering from pieces of debris, we lost everything. And it wasn't just my family, it was the state of the community. This place I called home for so long was gone, all in flames. How the churches were in the communities trying to help, and without operations in Jamaica, there was us too very than even in Melissa. I was able to get us into some of those communities that weren't able to be accessed otherwise. But overall, I think we learned so much resilience, having seen what we had to go through to where we are now. Even 6 months later, we are rebuilding and we're trying to pick up the pace and start over. It has been overwhelming, but it has also been rewarding to see where we're come from and what we're coming to.
Absolutely. And in fact, for me, one of the measures of our capacity to respond quickly and be resilient is within the first 2 weeks, we were able to do more care packages that we did during the entire period of COVID, right? And so, it's a lot. And I must say, for me, I was really, really impressed with the response of our partners and other organizations who were willing to help, especially the diaspora. People flew from all over, not just the US, but Germany and other places, and they wanted to get involved. And so, I really, really appreciate our partners. We had over 70 organizations and individuals who directly supported us, either financially or transportation or other, whatever way they could. I remember getting phone calls and people saying, family members are stranded in their community and can we literally get 5 packages to them, and so on. And we helped. We started to make calls and so on. Even if we physically couldn't get there, we relied on partners. So, Lisa, I know you were overwhelmed during that initial period and you interfaced a lot with those partners. And I know very early you started to get called even before Melissa hit, So tell us about that period.
Yes, you had mentioned that I had gotten calls. GWN, our long-standing partner, the foundation, GWN Foundation, was one of those early calls. They called days before the hurricane had landed, and they were interested to put in the necessary steps to get in their packages ordered and prepared before any other partner had reached out to us, so we were able to do that. Normally, we would do the care packaging, preparation, and package at our LCF Entrepreneurship Hub, but due to the magnitude of the requests and orders, we had to take our operations from here to Whitehorse. And we had the tremendous help and the support of the companies who were integral in providing their staff members as well to help with us, and then also the managers were on board and on the ground helping us. And then during the first week, we had about 4,300 packages distributed.
Excellent. And I know that we had a lot of volunteers. Tell us about the tremendous show of support and willingness of Jamaicans to just within the company and outside of the company to provide some support.
The volunteer support was absolutely amazing. Persons who saw the need, saw the help that we wanted to give to Jamaicans across the island, they were able to put even their own issues aside to help with this cause. And that was just overwhelming. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, I interacted with a few of the volunteers, and they had their own issues, not so much related to the West, because they're mainly from Kyrgyzstan, but some of them, I remember one volunteer saying, boy, she's the sole caretaker of an elderly mother, and the mother was sick. And so I really agree with you that we couldn't do a lot of this without those volunteers.
And even our partners and the group were able to pivot from the regular entrepreneurship program to helping us at the White Man location.
That's true, because the entrepreneurship component, of course, was a big part of it, because we knew early. In fact, our approach from day one was a kind of 3-part approach. And we learned that from Beryl, remember?
Yes.
That we do the initial relief effort, to anybody who needs help, but we transition quickly to helping the small and the micro businesses, the cook shops, the corner shops, because they really need a lot of help, and oftentimes in these disasters, people ignore them. But they are the lifeline to many, the support of their own families and members of the community. And so we felt it important, and so we quickly transitioned to phase 2. And then that's where we got the help of the Institute of Law and Economics. And Dwayne Gottsmeyer just led that effort very seamlessly after coming out of all that support we got from him at White Mall, and really helped us. So Dwayne, tell us about your experience with the entrepreneurs on the ground.
Yeah, no, I think our jumping in was as a result of the tremendous work that you and the team did leading up to the hurricane. What we saw you guys doing during the hurricane in terms of just trying to coordinate and have things on the ground, so that by the time it passed, we were able to move. And I think that kind of fueled our own energies for us to just jump right in. I'll also just touch on something that Lisa mentioned about the volunteers. We had volunteers who were inspired to go and talk to their own organizations to see if they can do some more. And Junior Chamber International was one such organization that the volunteers went back and say, look, the need is great, we have to do more. And then they jumped in and also responded with delivering packages across the island. From an entrepreneurial component and standpoint, when we went underground and saw those corner shops and cook shops, those are the main ones that we looked at in our activity, we saw how despondent they were, but also ready to come back. We saw persons who were operating from half of what they normally operate from, because they also know that the community is relying on them. And so that also, just kind of fueled us and helped us to do what we're doing. On the ground, it was lots of hardship that you were seeing, lots of things that can have you break down at any one point. But when you looked at these persons who, as you're interacting with them, they're also wanting to give you things. Mm-hmm. Like, I have 2 bananas and so on, I can give you.
I was amazed of that.
Yeah. Those things continue to tell you that you kind of have to do more and step out of self and to see how, you can certainly assist.
But tell me a little more about the cook shops, because I know that was important for us, because many of these cook shops serve the community, they serve the elderly and so on a normal basis.
Definitely.
And while there's a lot of international support for food,
yes,
we thought it was important for the communities and those shops to be ready after they leave to still help the community.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And that was huge. And so we went in with products for the cook shops to be able to start to offer things to the community right away, but then also through another partnership with Campco, and we have to just big up Michelle and her team. We gave them also some equipment so that they can also, pots that might have been damaged or blown away or, just can't find, they're able to get it to start to serve the needs of the community. That helped them personally for them and their family in terms of trying to get back on their feet, a sense of readiness and resilience and so on, but then also for the community who day by day depended on them for that starter meal, whether it was porridge in the morning or some curry chicken and white rice in the lunchtime, Bill's food as they mentioned. They were ready to get back out there and start to do some of those things.
And we were able to give them packages, food packages and stuff.
Definitely. Food packages we were able to do, again, based on some of the partnership that Lisa mentioned, that enabled us to be able to provide them with. And the packages typically cost about anywhere from $250 US to $150 US is the range for the package. And most times when we want to assess the need, sometimes we need to give them 2 or 3 of those packages. And so, you know, in the early onset, those were some of the things that we were doing, mainly focusing on the cook shop and corner shop, because as you can imagine, in that point, those are some of the critical needs that you'll have. And also one of the things that we heard as we were going in some of these community, they haven't seen anybody else yet. That was a big thing. So even when other persons might come and, you know, do 1 or 2 things, they leave, and these cook shops remain, these corner shops remain. And so there's a way in which they can kind of sustain themselves.
And this was about a week, 2 weeks after the hurricane hit.
Yeah, we were certainly, early days. We were certainly on the ground within the first week. But even 2 weeks after, the need was still there. It was still great. I remember we went to a community in Hanover. And the joy on the faces of those folks when they saw, and we went in with a police vehicle, so we were able to get some support from I think it's the community
Safety and Security Branch.
Police, to help us with those the community.
And I remember they were saying that this was the first time anybody gave them any help.
Correct.
You know, and I think that was closer to nearly a month after. It was more 3 weeks.
Around the 3 week mark.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and of course, the main demand was building. Materials. Tell us about that.
Well, we certainly, as we went through, you know, they were saying, yes, we need the food packages and so on. But see, my house over there, so we don't have anywhere to sleep. We saw some persons in some of the shelters as well, and they were just talking about the devastation that that faced them. And so they were quickly now starting to ask for additional supplies to help rebuild a house so that they can secure themselves and their family, but also the business themselves. And so that was another thing that we, had to pivot and start to help them with. And luckily from Beryl, we learned some lessons. So there was like a package that we also had put together where we know that plywood would be some of the main things. Things that would just help to create a nice structure and shelter for them, tarpaulins and so on. And so we were able to have a few of those that we could immediately start to get to the persons. Transportation was another thing. I mean, we spent hours in some of the early traffic, but I think we were able to navigate and get the things to persons. And they also made themselves available because they know that some of their communities, a truck can't get there, so they made arrangement to meet somewhere as well. So you also saw that with some of the individuals, they are meeting you halfway as well in terms of just making sure that.
And then I know part of the challenge we had, especially with some of our partners like the Sandals Foundation, who came and wanted to support, went beyond just the care package stage 1, but to help with the entrepreneurs. There was a question of how do we help them in a very tangible way? And so they were happy to join the partnership. And so there were issues having to do with literally making a decision about who gets.
Yes.
And so we created this. Tell us about the criteria we used.
Yes, as you know, the need was great. And internally, there was a mark of about 200 that we said we want to reach at least 200 businesses. And so we created the form so that we can also share it with other stakeholders, looking at some of the great needs. And of course, one of the high priority was family, mainly female-led households, and maybe and where the number of dependents are also great. Those are some of the early flags that we had looked out for. And then as it relates to businesses, a sense of just how many persons relied on that particular business was another key marker for us, because of course the greater number of persons who rely on this particular business is a signal that we need to certainly help this entity get back on
And the
track.
broader, of course, community impact.
Oh, for sure. And so Sandals Foundation coming in to help with that was significant, because we were able to identify businesses within a particular location and just zoom in and try to assist them to get right back up on their feet. So these businesses have been very appreciative of the support that we are able to give them. And of course, we can't give them everything, and they know that as well. And so when we interact with them, they will say, no man, I can get so-and-so to help me with the roof, and I can get this one to help me with some of the labor. And so they also jump in. There have been a few times, however, even after we've led the initial support, that they've called to say, well then, grateful for the help, but if I'm able to get 2 more bags of cement, that would take me to the next level. If I'm able to get 2 more sheets of ply, then I could finish this phase and move on. And we certainly have to say thanks to the partners, because when we hit upon some of these spaces where the foundation can't do it through their own resources, we have to reach out to the partners. And so Sandals Foundation jumped in and lent support. Environmental Health Foundation was really great with that. We got some gift certificates from Digital Foundation, and that worked tremendously as well. And so there are a number of other partners, but again, those are the 3 that kind of jumped to mind, and we have to say thanks to them for the continued support for these entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I know that I felt some of the gratefulness, and some of the business actually said, boy, without your support we couldn't do it.
Definitely.
Because when you walk around and you see the amount of businesses were just flat on the ground. And, I remember one of the experiences I had was this young woman, and she was in Montego Bay when the hurricane hit. When she came back, her mother was like alone in the house, and she had to sleep under the house in the little space. I couldn't believe it. She was there for like 2 weeks. And when I spoke to her, she was like shell-shocked,
Yes.
and so she couldn't express any emotions of gratitude, but you could know that she needed it.
Definitely.
And so the psychosocial support, the trauma is real. We saw it. One of the things that we're doing in the foundation, as you know, is to do a little psychological first aid, so that will help us as we continue to interact, and at least know what questions to ask. Because the obvious question, like, how are you doing? Well, how you expect me to do?
Correct.
That's not the place to start,
And my team and I are very grateful for that training.
Yes.
I mean, it exposed us to a number of things that we took for granted. We go in with a level of sensitivity, knowing that we certainly can't imagine what they are going through, because we're not in that position. And so, as I mentioned, some of the questions that we asked, we have to be a little bit more sensitive to that. And the training opened our eyes to a number of those things. But importantly, how to treat with ourselves, and maybe other techniques that we can use to put them at ease, and also to get them talking. Because very often we meet up on entrepreneurs, and the person beside them will tell you that she's normally very talkative. I don't know why she's not talking now. It's because of the trauma, and the training helped us to understand that. But then there are some key things that we could do or say with that individual to help them to express themselves a little bit more and get them, kind of moving again. So that training has been very useful for us.
And of course, we've done about four parishes, and several entrepreneurs already have packages and are well on their way.
Totally. So we are in the 4 main parishes that were affected. But the need, of course, is great, and you've given us a 200 mandate. We're at 132 businesses that we are interacting with now, going through the different processes with them. But importantly, 58 of them are well on their way in terms of being back into almost full swing of things, supporting their communities, and very importantly, having sustainable livelihoods for themselves and their family.
And of course, our future activities and engagement for the rest of the year was made possible by a grant. We got the SNS grant out of Greece and, overseas. I have to say, for someone who was involved in preparing the proposal and so on, at that time it was just so stressful, but they made it very easy. And I really want to thank them for making the process so easy. And we were able to get a grant that will help us now to continue to support for 1 year. And I'm looking forward to that support.
Definitely. And Prof, I couldn't end this part without, kind of commending you and your own leadership and the one-on-one direct conversations that you had with persons that resulted in some meaningful stuff. For instance, phone conversation yielded some funds that will go towards directly supporting single mothers, to support their own household, but their rebuilding efforts. And I remember when we spoke with one of those ladies, she was crying because she is not able to be in the same space as her daughter at night. So she's not sure what her daughter is going through because the house was torn apart and the children had to go somewhere and she was going somewhere else. And so, that's one of the women that we'll be working with to help her to just get back on her feet in a meaningful way.
And that is so important because, gender-based violence in emergency is something that many people are trying to support because we tend to forget the vulnerability of young girls and women. And that's a classic case with these young girls. They were teenagers and didn't have a roof over their head and so on. So really, really happy for the partnership. And I think, without the partnership, we could not do as much as we did. And after the 6 months, I'm really surprised to see that we got to 18,019 packages to families and businesses in the West. Really, really tremendous. And we couldn't do it without the support of partners. And I'm really, really happy. So we'll continue this process going forward. But before we end, I do want to ask our accountant. 18,000 packages is a lot, and I know you had to deal with a lot of money from different sources. So tell us how you ensure that we keep our reputation of being a trustworthy partner and accountable for every cent.
Okay. When you look at the volume of transactions committed for part over time, I used to look around, spotting hard. I have to make sure my system is in place. So what I did up front is say, Lisa, what do you think we have in place? And Dwayne partner here jumped on and next it with a nice integral system. So as somebody makes an order, it comes and it goes straight on to the accounts. No, internal control is what I tried on the level. When systems are good and in place, you don't worry yourself. And once it's there, everything falls in place. You have reconciliation. No, sadly, I had to live in the heart of Mensa. Brother died, I had to go abroad, so I had to stay abroad. I have to monitor things for accounting perspectives. That was critical. I was away for 2 weeks. Now, when I got back, it was, I think, seamless because everything was in place because of my overseas monitoring. Now, when in accounts, what you have to do is to make sure that everything collected is accounted for. Everything spent is accounted for. Without that, you're in chaos because at the end of the day, you, the accountant, are going to be held responsible for your managed funds. You have to account to the CEO, you have to account to the board. Everything automatically, everything have to be there at all times. There are reconciliation, what you do after each week or so, you reconcile what is to come in, what does not come in, what I to go for that. Okay? So that is how I do it on a timely basis. Okay. Good.
All right, wonderful. So I think you certainly have provided some insight as to what has happened, not just from an accounting point of view, but from a personal point of view, because we were all impacted in so many ways. I know we were truly grateful for you to stay in touch and keep on top of the accounts even when you had your own personal tragedy and you had to try it. So, I express my not just sympathies but gratitude.
If I can add to what Mr. Finley has also said, is that part of what he did was also to make sure that everybody who is on the project understands the importance also of the receipts, of making sure that you're accounting for different things, and the importance overall of just the integrity of the operation that's happening. He was very clear with that. Everybody on the project from a day-to-day standpoint understood that, and also understood that any waste of funds, whether it be an extra meal, because if it's supposed to be 10 volunteers or whatever, then we try to be as clinical with those funds, because it could mean the difference with a care package going to an individual. And so certainly Mr. Finley's own stewardship of that and just making sure that the entire team understands the importance of that is also commendable.
And that was the mandate from our chairman. Make sure you can account for every cent. And I think we've done just that. So team, thank you very much. Oh, can you manage another 6 months? Because we still have more entrepreneurs to help.
Definitely.
Our third phase is how we help to build more resilient communities. And again, we have partners that we're working in there. Are you up to it, Anaki? That sounds wishy-washy.
I think another 6 months, having learned well from Beryl and having, I think, pivoted drastically from, getting right out there as soon as this happened, getting right out there with the entrepreneurs, getting in the faces of the partners and getting on the ground and staying on the ground and being consistent has prepared us a lot for what we are to prepare for, which is the sustainability aspects. And I think we are ready.
Good. Lisa?
Right, team?
Ready?
We're ready. We're always to go.
Well, we will be ready because we're putting our plans in place. We have our lessons learned and we have our assessments done. We will be ready.
All right, and we have the plans and so on. So we'll just roll.
Yes.
All right, great. All right.
If we're going to a system like manage the category 5 system,
You can go through any system.
we can control it.
Absolutely, because it was important. You made the point that we had to upgrade on the fly, just to meet the overwhelming demand and so on. So, again, thank you, team. I think this is a dream team, and if it wasn't for all of you individually, collectively, we would be here today. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
6 months later.